Hey everyone, welcome back to the podcast, and today's episode is not going to be one of those light, easy conversations you can just listen to in the background while scrolling your phone, because what we're about to talk about is something that sits quietly in your life, shaping your routine, controlling your time, and slowly deciding who you become, without you even noticing it.
Yeah, and if you're listening to this while getting ready for work, or maybe stuck in traffic, or sitting in an office pretending to be busy while your mind is somewhere else, then this conversation might feel a little too real for you.
Because today, we're talking about something everyone has, but very few people actually understand, and that is your job.
Such a simple word, right? Job. Just 3 letters. Something you've been hearing since childhood. Something people keep asking you about like it's the ultimate measure of your worth. What do you do? Where do you work? How much do you earn? As if those answers somehow define your entire existence.
And the scary part is, at some point, you start believing that too. You start thinking that your job is your identity, your routine is your life, and your salary is your value, and without even realizing it, you begin to shrink yourself into something much smaller than what you once dreamed of becoming.
I used to be that person completely.
I feel like most people are, they just don't admit it.
Yeah, and if I'm being honest, I didn't admit it either, not for a long time. Because from the outside, everything looked fine, actually more than fine. I had a stable 9 to 5 job, a decent paycheck, a structured routine, and the kind of life that society approves of, the kind your parents feel relieved about, the kind your relatives proudly mention at family gatherings.
The safe life.
Exactly. The safe life, the predictable life, the life where nothing is really wrong, but nothing feels truly right either.
That's the most dangerous kind of life, because when things are obviously bad, you want to change them, but when things are just okay, you settle, and settling slowly becomes your comfort zone.
And comfort zones are tricky, because they don't feel like traps at first. They feel like security. They feel like stability. They feel like you're doing the right thing. Until one day, something shifts inside you, and suddenly, everything feels different.
I want you to talk about that moment, because I think that's where everything starts.
It's strange, because there wasn't anything dramatic about it. No big failure, no emotional breakdown, no life-changing event. It was just a normal day, like any other day, the kind of day that blends into every other day until you can't tell them apart anymore.
That already sounds heavy.
Yeah, I woke up, checked my phone, rushed through my morning, got ready, and went to work, just like always. And when I reached the office, everything was exactly the same. The same desk, the same chair, the same people having the same conversations about deadlines and targets and things that felt important in the moment, but meaningless in the bigger picture.
That routine, it's like a loop you can't escape.
Exactly. And I sat there, staring at my screen, pretending to focus, clicking around, replying to emails, doing what I was supposed to do. But my mind wasn't there. It was somewhere else, somewhere far away, asking questions I had been avoiding for a long time.
What kind of questions?
The kind that make you uncomfortable, the kind that disrupt your peace, the kind that you try to ignore because answering them honestly would force you to face reality. Questions like, is this what I'm going to do for the rest of my life? Is this all there is? Am I actually happy or just used to this?
That last one. Happy or just used to it. That hits hard.
It does, because most people confuse familiarity with happiness. They think that just because something is normal, it must be right, but normal doesn't always mean fulfilling.
So what happened next?
Nothing, and that's what made it worse, because life just continued like nothing had changed. Even though everything had changed inside me, I still attended meetings, still completed tasks, still smiled when needed, still played the role I was expected to play. but deep down, something felt broken.
That's exhausting. Pretending everything is fine when it's not.
It is, and that's the point where your energy starts draining in a different way, not physical exhaustion, but mental exhaustion, emotional exhaustion, the kind that doesn't go away with sleep.
So when did it finally hit you?
That night, when I got home.
What was different about that night?
Silence.
Silence.
Yeah, no TV, no music, no scrolling, no distractions, just silence. And for the first time in a long time, I allowed myself to sit in that silence and actually listen to my own thoughts instead of running away from them.
That's rare. Most people avoid that.
Exactly, because silence forces you to confront things you've been avoiding. And that night, I asked myself a question that I had never asked before. Not honestly, at least.
What was it?
If money didn't matter, would I still choose this life?
And
The answer came instantly, and it was a clear, undeniable no.
no hesitation.
None. And that's what shook me, because it made me realize that I wasn't choosing my life. I was just maintaining it, sustaining it, surviving it, but not truly living it.
That realization must have been heavy.
It was, because once you see it, you can't unsee it. Once you realize that you're not where you want to be, every day starts to feel different. Every routine starts to feel heavier. Every hour feels more noticeable.
So what did you do? Did you quit?
No. And that's where most people get it wrong. They think the solution is to just quit everything and chase their dreams blindly. But that's not courage. That's chaos.
So what's the right move then?
Awareness first, then strategy.
Explain that.
I didn't need to escape my job immediately. I needed to understand my situation first. Understand what I wanted, what I lacked, what I needed to build, because wanting a different life is one thing, but being ready for it is another.
That's a big difference.
Exactly. And that's when I made a decision, not a loud, dramatic decision, but a quiet, powerful one. I decided that I would stop expecting my job to fulfill me, and instead, I would start building something outside of it.
That sounds simple, but I know it's not.
It's not, because it requires discipline, patience, and consistency, things that most people struggle with, especially after a long day at work when all you want to do is relax.
So how did you manage it?
I started with just 1 hour.
1 hour.
Yes, 1 hour every day after work. No excuses, no distractions, just one focused hour where I worked on myself, learned new skills, explored new ideas, and slowly started creating something that felt meaningful.
That's powerful, because it feels doable.
Exactly, and that's the key. Don't start with something unrealistic. Start small, but stay consistent, because consistency over time creates transformation.
And what did that 1 hour turn into?
It turned into hope.
Hope.
Yeah, because for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was moving forward, like I wasn't stuck anymore, like I had control over my direction, even if it was just a little bit.
That's something a lot of people are missing.
Exactly. And that's when I realized something important. Your job is not supposed to be your entire life. It's just a part of it. And if you let it become everything, you lose yourself in the process.
That's deep.
And the biggest shift for me was this. I stopped seeing my job as my future and started seeing it as my funding source.
That mindset alone can change everything.
It does, because now, instead of feeling trapped, I felt strategic. I wasn't stuck anymore. I was preparing.
You know what I find interesting, Arjun? The moment you said you started seeing your job as a funding source instead of your future, it sounded simple, almost like a mindset trick, but I have a feeling the reality of living that shift wasn't as easy as it sounds.
Yeah, Not even close. Because changing your mindset is one thing, but changing your habits, your environment, and your daily behavior to match that mindset, that's where the real challenge begins. And honestly, that's where most people give up.
Because motivation fades.
Exactly. Motivation is temporary. It's emotional. It comes and goes. But discipline is what carries you when motivation disappears. And trust me, there were many days when I had zero motivation to do anything after work.
I think everyone can relate to that, especially after a long day when your brain feels completely drained and all you want to do is lie down and escape into your phone.
That's exactly what used to happen. I would come home, sit on my bed, pick up my phone just for 5 minutes, and before I knew it, an hour would pass, then two, and suddenly the day was over, and I had done nothing for myself.
That cycle is dangerous, because it feels harmless in the moment.
Yeah, but it slowly steals your time, and time is the only thing you can't get back. And once I became aware of that, I had to make a choice. Either continue that pattern or break it, even if it felt uncomfortable.
So how did you break it?
I made it harder to stay distracted than to stay focused.
That's interesting. What do you mean by that?
I started controlling my environment, not perfectly, but intentionally, like putting my phone in another room while I worked, turning off notifications, setting a fixed time where I knew, no matter what, that 1 hour was non-negotiable.
That takes serious discipline.
It does, but here's the truth. Discipline isn't something you're born with. It's something you build, slowly, through small decisions, repeated every day.
But what about the mental resistance? Because I feel like even if you remove distractions, your mind still tries to pull you back into comfort.
That's the hardest part, because your brain is wired to avoid discomfort. It wants easy dopamine, quick pleasure, instant relief, and when you suddenly force it to focus on something challenging, something unfamiliar, it resists.
So how did you deal with that resistance?
I stopped fighting it and started understanding it.
Explain that.
Instead of telling myself, I have to do this perfectly, I told myself, just show up. Even if I didn't feel like it, even if I was tired, even if I didn't make huge progress, because showing up consistently matters more than performing perfectly.
That's such a practical approach, because perfection is usually what stops people from even starting.
Exactly. And once I removed that pressure, it became easier to stay consistent, and over time, that 1 hour started to feel less like a burden and more like an investment.
Investment in yourself.
Yes, and that's something we're never really taught. We're taught how to work for money, but not how to invest in ourselves, not how to build something beyond our job.
That's true. The system prepares you to be an employee, not a creator.
Exactly. And once I realized that, I stopped waiting for opportunities and started creating them, even if they were small, even if they didn't bring immediate results.
Did you see results quickly?
No. And that's another thing people need to understand. This is not a quick process. There were weeks where it felt like nothing was happening, where I questioned myself, where I wondered if all this effort was even worth it.
That doubt, it's brutal.
It is, because progress is invisible in the beginning. You don't see big changes, you don't get validation, you don't get applause. It's just you, doing the work, quietly, consistently, without knowing exactly when it will pay off.
That's where most people quit.
Exactly, because they expect fast results, and when they don't see them, they assume it's not working. But the truth is, growth takes time, and the early phase is always the hardest because it feels like you're putting in effort without getting anything in return.
So what kept you going?
Clarity.
Clarity.
Yeah, I was clear about one thing. I didn't want to stay stuck. And that clarity was stronger than my excuses, stronger than my laziness, stronger than my fear.
That's powerful, because clarity removes confusion.
Exactly. And when you're clear about what you don't want, it becomes easier to move toward what you do want, even if the path isn't perfectly defined.
Did your job start feeling different during this time?
Yes, and this is where things got interesting, because earlier, my job felt like a burden, something I had to do, something that drained me. But once I changed my perspective, it started to feel neutral.
Neutral.
Yeah, not exciting, not fulfilling, but also not suffocating anymore, because I stopped expecting it to give me something it was never designed to give.
That's a huge shift.
It is, because expectations create disappointment, and once I removed those expectations, I felt lighter. I was no longer emotionally dependent on my job.
That's something a lot of people struggle with. They expect their job to give them purpose, passion, and happiness all at once.
Exactly, and that's unrealistic for most people. Not every job is meant to be your passion. Sometimes it's just a stepping stone, and there's nothing wrong with that.
That actually takes pressure off.
It does. And once that pressure is gone, you can focus on building your passion outside of your job, instead of trying to force your job to become something it's not.
Did people around you notice the change?
Not immediately, because from the outside, nothing had really changed. I was still going to the same office, doing the same work, following the same routine, but internally, everything was different.
And that internal change is what matters first.
Exactly, because external change is a result of internal change, not the other way around.
Did you ever feel like giving up?
Many times, more than I can count.
What did those moments feel like?
Heavy, frustrating, lonely, because when you're trying to change your life, especially in the beginning, it feels like you're doing it alone, like no one really understands what you're trying to do.
That isolation can be tough.
It is, and that's why a lot of people go back to their old habits, because they feel familiar, comfortable, and socially accepted, while growth feels uncertain, uncomfortable, and often misunderstood.